Hi, welcome back to our introductory R programming playlist. And in today's video, we're going to learn about variables. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. So we've got the definition for you on the screen here. Variables are storage locations for data in computer memory, and the variable name can be used to retrieve, reuse, and change the data that's stored. So we're going to look at numeric examples for this, and hopefully then it will all make sense. But just keep in mind that variables apply to data of different types, but we'll continue to work with numbers for now until we learn about all the other data types. So to create a variable, you need the assignment operator. And we've got the syntax on the screen for you here. You have the variable name, and then this arrow symbol, which is the assignment operator, and then the data. So the assignment operator is made up of two symbols. That's the less than sign and the minus sign. So it's like an arrow that's pointing the data to where it's supposed to be stored. And let's look at an example for this. Let's create a variable for year. Now add an R chunk and we'll make it like the current year, which is 2023, and I'll simply name it year. So when we run that, we don't see any output under the R cell, and we don't see any output in the console either. But if you look way over to the top right here, you see values in the environment pane, and there's year, and then there's 2023. So that's one way you can tell that your assignment worked. Another way is to call that variable again, and we do this by just writing the name. So I'll add another R chunk here and run it, and it will output 2023. So you can use this variable year the same way you would use any number really. So let's say we wanted to know, what year is it going to be in 3 years. So let me add another R chunk. And what we could do is type year plus 3. And you can do this with any of the other operators that we learned in the previous video. You know what? I'll just hide the console because we don't need it. Now, before we proceed, I'd like to make a note on retrieving variables. So I'll show you first and then I'll explain it. Let's add another chunk. Right. I'm going to type year with a capital Y. And let's run it. And it says object year not found. This is because R is case sensitive, so you have to write the variable the exact same way that you declared it. And some of you may have noticed that when I typed year with a capital Y, there was a little box underneath it with year with the lowercase y. Let's redo that and see. Right, so this is auto suggest from R, and it's also autocomplete. So it looks at what variables that it has stored, and as long as you spell the variable correctly, it can say, okay, I think you meant this one because that looks like that if the case was all standardized. And you can click on it and it's gonna auto complete your code and you have the right variable. So you don't really have to worry so much about remembering what the names are, either checking your code or checking the environment pane, which is honestly easier than checking your code. But R will suggest it for you, and it needs like 2 or 3 letters for it to suggest it for you. So besides the syntax for assignment that we saw at the beginning of this video, there is syntax for variable naming as well. So we're going to talk about the things that you're allowed to use in the variable name. So you're allowed to use letters and numbers and the full stop special character and also the underscore. So you're not allowed to use spaces, and you're not allowed to use any other special characters. So let's look at an example if you're using a space. Let's say we were going to name our year current year to be more descriptive. Got a space in there. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's already complaining actually. Unexpected token, but let's run it to see what happens. Yep, unexpected symbol in current year. So when you're reading this, I feel like it's really hard to tell exactly where things went wrong. So that's why we're telling you. If we, for example, put an underscore here, actually I prefer dots usually. Let's try a dot here and see that those squiggly lines disappeared. And if we run that, now we have current year 2023. So you can replace the spaces with the period sign or the underscore, or you can just have current year as one word, whatever you need to do. But just remember, no special characters and no spaces. So another rule here, I'll add another R chunk, is unfortunately, even though you're allowed to include numbers, you cannot start with a number. So let's say we were doing 2023 year and 2023. If you run that again, it's like, what is this? You also cannot start with an underscore, but I will not show that here. So you can start with letters, and also something I do not do, you can start with a period. If you start with a period, the second character cannot be a number. Let's add an R chunk. So I will create a variable named dot 2023 year. And once we run that, we should get an error. Also, note that variables starting with a period do not show in the environment pane, and that's one of the reasons that I don't use them. Now, let's look at an example with the number that works, but not with the period. Just add a space for readability there, and that works. If we go to the environment pane, we have all the variables that were successfully created. So keep in mind with R, only allowed to use letters, numbers, period or full stops, underscore, and you cannot start with a number, which also means that you cannot have a number as a variable name. So for example, if we just show this here, scroll up a little bit, let's say we wanted to say 1, assign 2023 to that. Now, for best practice, it's recommended to use descriptive but not too long names. So, this will help you and other people more quickly understand what the variable is for. This is okay for like maybe equations, for example, where we use x, y, z and the sort. That's okay. It will be kind of obvious that it's an equation. And if there were a bunch of years in this code, then using current year, previous year, those kinds of names would make it descriptive too. And we've come to our last topic in this video, updating variables. Right, so I'm going to create a new variable for number of oranges. So remember in school when they were like something like Tommy has 20 oranges. He gives 5 to his friends. So how many oranges does Tommy have now? Yeah, so we're going to make the computer do that. So let's run that. Okay, now we have our variable number of oranges, and that's 20. So Tommy gave away 5 oranges. So 20 minus 5, that's 15. So what we could do is number one, just reassign this variable with 15. That's going to override it, and now you have the same variable with the different data. So let's try that. Now, as we can see from the environment pane, num oranges is now 15. So that's one way that you can update it. But this way kind of requires you to do the calculations in your head. So another way, we could actually subtract 5 from num oranges, and then we assign it to num oranges all in one line. So let's do it together. So let's say Tommy gave away 5 more oranges. And you should have 10, right? So num, just select that, so I have to stop typing. Oh, that's minus 5. Right, so this is how you do that. So what R is going to do is it's going to start from the very right here. It will have num oranges minus 5, and num oranges is now 15. So 15 minus 5, that's 10. And then it's going to assign 10 to num oranges too. Let's run that. And yep, now num oranges is 10. So these are the two ways that you can update variables. I prefer the second one because it's less manual and you don't have to think about things. We're doing like an elementary type problem here, but if you are working with, lots of different changes, then it's best to just have it do it like automatically, like by itself. So you can do this with all the different operators that we learned. If Tommy doubled his stash of oranges, then you can multiply that by 2 and then assign it back to num oranges in one line again. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.